Welcome to the Wonders of Watercolor, where this week I'm going to show you how to paint this pretty loose style poppy with easy to follow steps. So even if you're a complete beginner to watercolor, you can join in. So if that's your thing, stay tuned and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to be painting this really pretty loose style watercolor poppy using just a handful of colors today. You can see the colors that I swatched out here, and I'll be talking to you about them as we work through this video. But don't worry if you haven't got these colors, because I will be giving you alternatives. We want everybody to join in. Just a quick note, every week we provide you with a free outline to join in. But of course this week, because we're painting a loose style painting, I'll just give you the reference photograph and I'll leave it at the end of the video so that you can pause it. I'll also pop it over to Patreon, so I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but you can grab it for free over on Patreon for our free membership levels. So let's get started on trying to recreate this gorgeous white poppy. So all I'm going to do is a little circle, a very, very light circle in the middle here, which is going to form the middle, and then I'm just gently going to draw a really soft outline of where I want to put the petals. Now, working wet and wet just means that you've got a looser style painting. So I don't want to do a full-blown drawing for this one. It's just to guide me where I'm going to drop that first layer of paint and just use it as my kind of roughly where I'm going to part of the painting. So I'm just going to bring this down. We've kind of got a bit coming down there, a bit going up there. As I said, I'll put the reference photograph right at the end of this video so that you can screenshot it and use it that way. So with a really rough guide in place, I can now start to put down my first wash. We're all about working wet and wet today. And all that means is I'll be wetting the paper first and dropping in the watercolor paint. The paper that I'm using today is a rag type paper. It's sort of more of a sketchbook than proper watercolor paper. It's from Caddy and it looks like this. It's a smooth paper, although to me it's quite textured because it's handmade, and this is what it looks like on the back. All the materials that I'm going to use today, by the way, I will link in the description box underneath so that you can check them out for yourself. Now, I am using my paints from Deep Deep Light today. They are one of my favourite brands of paints, and just a few colours. I've got a yellow, an orange, a green, and a few other colours there. But like I said, I will give you alternatives as we work through. But if you did want to treat yourself to these, I'll tell you a bit more about them as we work through the tutorial. These are handmade paints in Latvia by two gorgeous ladies. But first of all, we need to mix up our colour. So I've got a clean glass of water here and I've got some kitchen paper. So I'm going to add a puddle of water to the middle. Okay, so the first colour I'm going to mix up is this muted kind of greeny yellowy tone. It's very neutral. This is called Butterfly, again from Deep Deep Light. If you don't have this colour, then you could use something like a buff titanium instead. It won't be the exact colour match, but it will certainly do for this tutorial as an alternative. We're going to have that one first. I'm going to do a puddle of another colour called Mirabelle or Mirabella. This is a lovely bright yellowy colour. You could substitute this one with Indian yellow. Again, not exactly the same, but if you wanted to join in with us, then there's no harm in doing that. Then that would work just as well. And thirdly, I'm going to use a colour called Rosehip. This is a lovely, vibrant orange colour. You can substitute it with transparent orange or any orange colour that you have. And I'm going to mix one more colour for this first wash, which is green woodpecker. It's always a good idea when you're working wet and wet to mix your colours up so that you can drop them in. So I'm picking up my water from the middle there, and the first thing I'm going to do is just apply it all over the areas I want to drop the paint. So I'm going to that pencil line. Now, if you'd rather work completely freely and not put the pencil line in, you can of course do that. But I do recommend that you do a really rough outline so that you can see roughly where you're going. I'm not brave enough to do it without that guide, so I like to put that pencil line in. I'm going over the middle section as well, but I'm not going over the stem. So I'm just using my number 8 brush. This is from my set from Craftamo that we launched last year. We're on our second release now, so we have still got a few left at the time of filming. So I'll put the link to that in the description underneath this video in case you want to check those out. The trick with wet and wet is to let that water settle into the paper a little bit. You can see it glistening, and you want that glisten just to be sinking away slightly. If you drop your paint in too quickly, it's going to just float on the surface. You want to just leave it until it's just softly glistening without pooling on the paper. Picking up my first colour, which is Butterfly. You can see that I've mixed some of the colours here together on my swatch card. This gives me an idea of how the colours will look together. So first of all, we're going to just drop in that Butterfly, and it will go where I've just put the water. So it won't go outside that pencil line when you're dropping it in. So just lightly, really, really easy to do. So like I said, you could substitute this with buff titanium if you haven't got the colour. And you're just going to just gently push it to that pencil line to give it some shape. Just like that, really easy. Tapping off the excess of my paper there, and then just gently pushing it into that outside edge. We don't want it to be too tidy. We're not about botanical painting today. So in case you're new here, we do a lot of botanical paintings on this channel. I'm just going to pick up this Mirabelle while I'm talking. I am a botanical artist, so we do a lot of botanical work over here on the Wonders of Watercolor. You could see me dropping in that Mirabelle there while this is still wet and just letting it do its thing. I'm just going to take it lightly into this outer area to give the illusion, and then picking up a little bit of that green tone just to start to drop it in here and there. So usually on the Wonders of Watercolor, we're all about botanical painting and tighter work. We have got something like over 200 videos now, so do check us out if you want to learn how to paint botanical or watercolor painting and all of that stuff. I'll put a botanical playlist at the end of this tutorial for you to check them out in case that's of interest to you. So just popping that on. And while I've got this colour mix, I'm going to just put it onto the stem and let it gently blur into that petal. Now it's wet and wet, so it doesn't matter if it blurs into that edge. In fact, I quite like that look. So this is Woodpecker. Woodpecker is a separating colour. It's granulating, which means it will separate out onto the paper. So straight down, using my number 8 brush, wet on dry this time. So let's take it right the way down to the bottom of the stem. And like that. I'm going to mix a little bit more. This is a gorgeous colour. Like I said, it's granulating, which means it will separate out when you're working wet and wet. So I'm just going to put another layer on and just let it drop in like this. We can darken it up a little bit later on. So watercolour is all about building up your layers one by one. As we're waiting for that to dry a little bit, I'm picking up some of that beautiful Rosehip, and all I'm going to do is just drop in a few little dots here and there, so I know roughly where I'm going to go a bit later. Just like that. Cleaning my brush, passing it dry, and then what I'm going to do is start to pull out some shapes with my brush like this, just to guide me later on where I'm going to go. Same with this. I'm going to just add a bit more paint, drop it on like this, cleaning my brush. And then you must pat your brush dry, and with that damp brush, all I'm going to do is start pulling out some of the little furry hairs that you see on the stem. So this is wash number 1, and you can just pull out that paint while it's still damp using a brush that you like. This is a number 8 brush, and it's really good for all kinds of washes because you've got this nice fine point. So just start to just pull out some hairs at the side to give that textured look that we see on the stem of a poppy. Try not to go in one direction, keep your brush going in different directions to make it look nice and natural. So just keep pulling it out whilst it's still wet, like that. So like I said, I'll put the reference photograph at the end of this video for you to see, but I'll also put it over on Patreon. Now you can join Patreon for free to have access to all our outlines and reference photographs where applicable here on YouTube. Usually every week we give you a free digital version when we're not doing this loose style painting, and that's available for all my free members and all of my paid members. So you'll get that no matter what level you are. over on Patreon, okay? We do monthly tutorials there that are for really keen botanical painters, so you won't find them here on YouTube. They are written just for my patrons, and if botanical painting is something that interests you, then you may want to take a look at our Patreon to see what you get every month, and of course it's a way of supporting my channel. So let's just take a little look at what you get. When you join Patreon, you will have access to exclusive content that you just won't find here on YouTube. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just dipping your brush into botanical watercolor, you may want to join us here on Patreon, where the magic happens. And with Patreon's new collections tab, it makes accessing the tutorials super easy. When you join us here on Patreon, we dive deep into the art of botanical watercolors, from vibrant blooms to fine detail, and I'm here to guide you every step of the way. We have 3 membership levels to suit your skill and budget, and we even have a mentorship and coaching level, so if you're serious about developing your skills, then this could be the level for you. And now you can join Patreon for free, which will give you access to all of our YouTube traceables, which will be delivered weekly to your inbox, so no more scrolling through for the images. So if you are ready to embark on a watercolor adventure, unlock exclusive content, and join a community that celebrates the beauty of botanicals, hit that join button, which I will link in the description. We have got that mentorship level as well, so if that interests you, then do check us out. Of course, you don't have to join Patreon to learn how to paint, because you can do it right here on YouTube. These are super easy to follow and are suitable for everybody. So we've got this one layer now drying off a little bit, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that Mirabelle, that lovely yellowy colour, and I'm going to just drop a little bit more in. So now that this is dry, we can start to just drop a bit more in. I'm not putting any more in the middle at the moment. I'm trying to stay out of that middle section because I can see that that's a little bit more green. I'm going to get my brush and I'm just going to start to pull out 1 or 2 of the filaments this time. So just go over and start to pull them out like this. Taking a little bit of that green colour. So this is green woodpecker again. And I'm going to just darken it slightly with a colour called forest green. So earlier on this year, I collaborated with Deep Deep Light and I curated my own set of paints called Ray's Blooms Palette. If you have already bought that set, which I know many of you have, Mirabelle, forest green, rosehip, and green woodpecker are all part of that set. So you already have these colours if you bought that. So green woodpecker, I'm going to put that on its own. I'm just going to drop that in the middle bit here, but not out of that top section. Just going to drop that in like that. And then where I've mixed it with the forest green, that darker value, we can just put that in the side like that. Again, let it do its thing. Whatever's left on the brush, I'm going to mix in with that first wash. So I've mixed the darker green colour with the butterfly. And this time we can start to add a bit more, just a bit more shading here and there. It's still damp, so we've still got this lovely damp look. And we're just popping in that colour, just to give it a little bit more shape and form. At this point, whatever's left over, again, I'm going to just drop in the top section here. All I can do at this point is gently let it dry. But while I'm waiting, taking that darker value, and I'm going to just pop it to the underside of this. This is still damp. Just pop it on, cleaning my brush, and then just gently wiggling that brush to give it a bit more of a softer blur. And again, pulling out that line just to get those little spiky hairs looking nice and natural. And again, just drop it in there where you want to see, where you want those little shapes to take place. So we've got our first wash in place now. It's looking really loose and really flowy. All I can do is let that dry, and then we can come back and start to put a few more layers on. But while we're waiting, I must tell you a little bit more about these paints. So these are from Deep Deep Light. They are a Latvian brand, and they hand make these stunning paints. They do an array of colours, and I've put just a few of them in this little tin here that they gave to me. Like I said, the colours that I've used today are as follows: Mirabelle, Rosehip, Forest Green, Green Woodpecker and Butterfly. And you can see that I've mixed them together on this little swatch card, this gives me an idea of the colours that I can achieve by just using these few colours. So if you did want to treat yourself to these, or indeed any of the paints from Deep Light, which I absolutely adore, I do have a discount code, Deep Ray, that you will see on your screen, and you can head over to their website, Deep Light, quote that discount code, and you will get 10% off these paints and all of their watercolour paints if you want to treat yourself. But we're all about getting everybody painting on this channel, so you don't have to go out and buy them. Of course you don't. We're all about getting everybody painting, but many of you have asked me what I'm using. Many of you have loved them and have purchased them, so if that's something that appeals to you, then do check them out. Still waiting for this to dry, and it gives me a chance to say a little bit more housekeeping. If you are enjoying this video, could I ask you to hit the like button underneath? It's a way of supporting me. Or you may even want to consider subscribing to my channel by hitting that subscribe button and the little bell notification that you see on the side there. It means that you'll be notified when I upload new content once a week on a Tuesday. By hitting that subscribe button and like button that you see underneath this video, you're really supporting the creator that you're watching, and it does mean that your input helps me grow, and I'd really appreciate it. So just hit that like button and the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. Going back to Butterfly with a smidgen of that green mix that we've got here. This green mix contains a colour called Forest Green. I have swatched out some of the colours here that you can see on my side. This is Green Woodpecker. You can see that gorgeous kind of yellow tone in there. We have bright Mirabelle, Rosehip and Butterfly. So I have swatched them all out, but I like to kind of just keep them on the little side swatch there so that I can see where I'm going. But by mixing a tiny bit of that dark colour green there with that beautiful butterfly colour, it's given me a kind of grey tone to start to think about the shading that we see. Now when we're looking at the original one that I've done, you can see I've just painted those in wet on dry. So wet on dry means that you're just applying paint onto the dry paint to add a bit more detail. Now of course today's tutorial isn't about great detail, we're all about just having fun with painting. So I'm just going to put a few little bits and pieces on. So take that colour, apply it to the areas where you want to add a bit of shading, and just put it on a little bit like that. Clean your brush, pat it dry first of all, and then use that damp brush just to add a little bit of a softer motion to the outside edge of the area you've just applied. So you can use that to soften through that line and then pull it down into the areas that you want. I'll show you that again. So for example, where these two petals meet, we've got a line coming up like that, and we can put a few folds in like that. So clean your brush, pat it dry, and then just blend them out. And then with that damp brush, you can wiggle it to create a little bit of a pattern like that. So you can add a bit more. We can try and do a few more here, for example. I like to just put them on where these colours meet. A bit more, sort of coming down here. Again, where we've got these meeting petals, just put that colour in. Take it into the middle if you want to. And then using that damp brush to just blur and pull. You can take it to the ends. You can start here if you want to and bring it in. But we want it to be loose and flowing. Nothing too fussy today. So remember to stay right until the end of this video where I'll put the reference photograph. I normally keep it in screen, but because we're not doing a sort of tight botanical painting today, I'm going to just stick it on the end so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. You can see I'm just putting this colour to the tips of some of the petals. Just to recap, this is Butterfly with a tiny bit of that green tone. You could use Davy's Grey, you could use, let me think, you could use something like a Buff Titanium with a tiny bit of olive green to do this if you wanted to, and that's fine. So I'm going to go back now to this section here. I'm going to put a tiny bit of Butterfly on the top just to take it into that green. Okay, we've got a bit of a pattern going on here, so I'm just taking that green tone and just popping that in as well. We don't want it to be too fussy. And then with that plain water, I'm going to just take it over here. Once again, going over that colour. You can see I'm almost throwing that paint onto the paper, that water onto the paper. Nothing too fussy at all, okay? Going back, This is Mirabelle, and once again, we're going to just drop that in. Take it into the colours that you see on the petal and let them blur together. Use your brush, just push them in. This number 2 brush, by the way, is part of my set from Craftamo again. This is kind of my sort of brush that I use to do these second washes. What we're going to do now is just take it and push it onto the top. We've got some stamen and anther going on here, but remember, we're not about detail today. We're just having fun and just dropping that colour in, adding a bit of dots here and there, just letting it do its thing. Dots. You can take it into the dry paint if you want to just add a bit more detail. Like I said, we're not about realism today. I'm just going to move my water and then using that brush, same process as we used before. So just taking it and pulling it out. And then just have a few coming out here. Okay, really easy to do, just with that wet paint. If you want to be really fussy and use a thinner brush stroke, you can use a finer brush, but like I said, today I'm not really into, I'm not going to be doing like hard painting, I'm not going to be doing detail painting today. And then you can just add a few dots on the top if you want to give the illusion of those beautiful colours. It's a nice loose style. I'm going to take a bit more of forest green. Forest green's a lovely dark green. I'm mixing it there on its own and I'm mixing it here with a tiny bit of the green woodpecker that I've mixed earlier on. So just add a bit more colour, picking up that pigment. I can see that's pooling a little bit there, so it's a bit too damp, but we'll try. I want this darker colour to be kind of just dropped in. I'm also going to just drop a little bit in at the base. Just patting my brush and releasing that pigment. It's magical when you drop watercolour into that wet paper because it just does its own thing. With whatever's left on the brush, I'm going to start to just pull it into the background there. And again, what I'd like to do is take some water, go back over the stem. I'd like to add some of the darker colour to the inside edge. Just like that. So we've got this lovely, loose, beautiful painting. Remember, if you did want to treat yourself to these beautiful paints from Deep Deep Light, I will put the discount code Deep Deep Ray that you see on your screen now in the description box so that you can check it out for yourself. I'm not going to do too much more to that. I'm going to leave it be. I'm very happy with the way it looks in this loose flowing style. So I'm going to call this painting finished. Remember, if you have enjoyed this video, please hit the like button underneath this video here on YouTube. It does mean that you're giving feedback to YouTube and it makes me very happy to know that I've got your support, and also you may want to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, as I've said. All the materials I'm going to link in the description box underneath this video. Thank you for watching, but let's just take a moment to appreciate the finished painting.